Welcome to our Sunday Night Live. And tonight we're going to be talking about step 6 and willingness to change. So I'm going to start with asking you a question. Hopefully you are coming along with your step work, but as I've been saying along the way, it's really okay wherever you are. If you are following along and you're up to step 6, that's wonderful. And bravo, that's amazing. And if you are just following along to learn about the steps, that's really great too. Because I think learning about the steps and sometimes just kind of getting clued into how it's all going to go is a good way to kind of get ready to do them. So wherever you are in this process, whether you're observing, learning, or actually doing them, it's all good. And I'm glad that you're here. So step 6 is, actually there was a pamphlet that was written by Hazelden, which is an addiction recovery program. They write pamphlets and books, and they had written this pamphlet called The Forgotten Steps, about steps 6 and 7. And I think that was a really good name for steps 6 and 7, because they're kind of these steps that if you aren't really paying attention, you might not realize the importance of them and the power of them. And I actually think they're really, really, for those of us who are spiritually minded and who are really understand about God and the importance of turning our lives over to God, then we really understand these steps about this step, particularly as we were ready to have God, willing to have God remove all of our defects. And so this is really a spiritual step. And I think maybe those of us who are more practical minded, this is, kind of taking us into the spiritual. It's not so much of a to-do step as much of it is to put ourselves in the right connection to God. And so, I'll ask you this question. Do you think that some of the problems that you have are too impossible to change? And these are the problems, not just food. We're talking about the other problems, the things that are your character issues that you've identified in your 4th step when you were taking your inventory. The challenges with our personality, with our defects, the struggles that we beat ourselves up over, the things that we know we wish were different about ourselves. And I know for many of us, we might walk around with a 2x4, beating ourselves over the head for things that we wish were different. And so I'm asking you this question. Do you think that your problems, some of them, I guess some of us have issues that we've been carrying for our whole lives, and do you think that these are too impossible? Do you think it's too much, that you can't change, that it's just never going to happen, that you're just stuck like this and you can't imagine how you'll change, especially some things that you just know they're sort of long-standing problems? And then the other question is, can you imagine or believe that God could and would remove your defects of character? Do you believe that he could actually do that? And so I'm kind of challenging us all, me included, because I think it's a really interesting place to come to in our lives to say, well, just like with the food, we face our powerlessness. We face that, I really can't stop overeating without a higher power, without God intervening. And then when we come to step 6, we are also taking the other parts of our lives in that same powerless stance and recognizing in front of God that we can't change the other things about ourselves either without him doing something supernatural in us. That if we can tell ourselves, like I could tell myself day in and day out to be more efficient, to be more disciplined, to procrastinate less, or to be more courageous, or less angry, or less bitter. And, if for those of us who are prone to certain, being fearful or being avoidant, if we've always been avoidant, then, we may have trouble imagining changing that. But to invite God into the mess and to realize are really our utter powerlessness. I think when we've tried to change ourselves, or we've told ourselves that we should change repeatedly, and then we see ourselves sort of not changing, even though we know we should, quote unquote, and we don't. And we're all like that. All of us are like that. Everyone can identify with this. We all have areas of our lives that we would like to be better. And we have areas that we just are, in a sense, powerless to change. We tell ourselves, I know I should, I know I should. And here's where, we come to God with it, and we become ready to have him intervene and remove the defects. And we're putting ourselves in the position of humility, of being able to go to him with the problem. And it's a very different thing than bombarding ourselves with more willfulness or more of an insistence that we have to make ourselves better, and then end up walking around feeling ashamed of ourselves and our weaknesses. So this is just that's what step 6 is really about, is, are you ready? And so I'm going to read a little portion from the book, from the workbook, and this is on page 102. And I gave a vignette of a person. Please ignore, my dogs are playing, and if you hear growling, that's because there's growling in my room here. Charlie and Cooper are rolling over top of each other, and hopefully they'll both be alive and well at the end of this. Okay, Cindy felt like she was more than ready for God to have all of her. She had been close to the Lord since she was young, but this food problem was a source of real guilt and shame. She had readily taken the steps up to this point, but when she arrived at step 6, she assumed it would be simple. Of course, I want Jesus to take all of my defects. But when we looked a little more honestly at her problems, she realized she'd been holding on to some behaviors and attitudes quite strongly. With genuine consideration, she realized she might not be as ready for change as she would like. Cindy noticed how she held grudges, was critical of herself and others, and used food for comfort to the point she admitted she wasn't even sure she could live without that soothing feeling she got from a good binge. On the surface, it seemed this step was simple, but it actually required that Cindy look at herself and her readiness to change more seriously and with gut-level honesty. So, I have encountered both in myself and with others, the challenge of realizing that things that we are doing, sometimes we're doing so readily and so easily, and sometimes it's hard to even imagine. Like, sometimes we hold on to a good grudge and we feel right in that and powerful in that, and it's hard to let go of it, and we don't feel like the other person deserves our forgiveness, and we just almost get off on the power trip inside of ourselves. Or sometimes maybe we're being a little dishonest, and we catch ourselves that we have a little guilt about it, but we want to stay that way because there's gains involved. Like, if we're being a little dishonest financially, maybe if we were being honest, we would have less money, and we don't trust the Lord with that. So, and there could be a number of other things that we do that if we really look hard at it, we don't really want to change. And so this is just a time of being really honest. And I think that it's really good just to be real with God and real with our support system about, maybe I don't really want to change. Maybe I'm not ready, but and start there in your prayers, because the Lord already knows anyway, like the parts of ourselves that we're still holding back. And so I encourage you, if you are struggling with your readiness to change or your readiness to have God remove your defects, to ask him, tell him, I realize that I should want to change this. This is how I feel about food too. Any behavior, any attitude that you notice, just be honest with God. He is good. You don't have to be always like all together in your prayers. Just have a real relationship with him where you're just genuine and tell him the truth. Say, you know what? I realize on some level, Lord, that I'm not really ready to give this up. But help me be ready, because I do want to be pure and I do want to be right and I do want to be free, but I'm having trouble. And just tell him the truth about where you are. And ask him to help you to get ready. And I also want to encourage you, and I think this is also really helpful for those. I know for myself, I think it's really helpful to use your imagination, to go beyond where you are, like the problems that, when I think about one of my first step 6 and 7 things was fear. And I remember being terrified. Here I am speaking, but I used to be terrified to speak in front of a group. And I remember I was at a recovery group thing and I was supposed to be speaking and I was terrified. I was so terrified. I didn't want to do it. I wanted to get out of it so bad. And I went into a chapel at this retreat center, and I talked to God about it. I was very nervous. I just was trying to get out of it so bad. But it was like there was something about this gut level honesty that I could just say the truth, that I'm scared, and I could lay the fear down in front of God, and just be real about it. And I could admit that I didn't know how to change it, and I couldn't change it, and I didn't have the courage. And that's just being real. Like I didn't even want to do it. I wanted to run away. And that was the truth. I just wanted to run as far as I could. Sorry, my dogs. I have to get them out. I just wanted to run away. But by just being honest and laying it down in prayer, I was able to receive like this touch from God that he gave me something that I didn't have, and that was the courage to speak and to step in. But I think it's using your imagination. Like I feel like being able to see yourself just stepping into that place, that change, and to be able to not just see yourself as that fearful person or as that angry person, but what does it look like to be on the other side of that, and to believe God into that vision or into that imagination of what you hope for, so you know what you're aiming for. And so that's what I want to encourage you. And as I wrap up, I'm going to read a couple of scriptures. So the one that I love this verse. It's really one of my favorite scriptures, and it's from Ephesians chapter 4, verse 22 to 24. So it's to put off your old self, which belongs to your former manner of life and is corrupt through deceitful desires, and be renewed in the spirit of your minds, and to put on the new self, created after the likeness of God in true righteousness and holiness. Well, you know what? I think that's just going to be the only one I'm going to read, because that's my standout verse tonight. Putting off the old self. I think that's what this is really all about. Step 6 is we're putting off the old self, and we're laying it out in front of God, and we're becoming ready to be the new self that God has created us to be. So I encourage you to continue on in your step work wherever you are. Just keep on at it. If you're still on step 1, then work on step 1, but keep learning, keep following along. Does anybody have any questions? I see some of you. I just want to send love and hugs to everybody who's here, and just thank you for being here. And I pray the Lord will help you to realize that he does want you to be better and healthier, and you don't have to be ashamed of your weaknesses. That's not how it is. That's not how it is. No condemnation. It's all about him loving us into, being more like how he wants us. And if you can see that his gentle touch and his love just drawing you in to a better place and drawing you into a healthier place, and not a shaming. It's just, this is not a shaming experience. It shouldn't be. I really believe it's just getting ready to have him take away our troubles. I know I'm making it sound easy, but I know we hold on to things, and it's hard to just let go. And you ever hear that thing saying almost everything we let go of has like, nail marks or, scratch marks all over, but once you start to realize he will just take it if you can let him. And it's not you having to work all this stuff out, because he is doing in us what we could never do. So I pray everyone in here, including me, because I still need, this is a work forever, that I need him in my weak areas every day, because I can't change myself. I need him to do it. So we all do. So, all right. Anybody have any questions or comments? I see you here. I know you're here. I can actually see you on my screen today. It was a crazy day getting in to Facebook, but I can see you here. So if anybody has a comment or a question, I can't see any comments. I just see names of people. But if anybody wants to say anything, I know sometimes after I hang up, after we go off, I see all the comments, but I don't see any now. Well, oh, there we go. What was the verse again? Thank you for asking. There we are. I see you now. All right. Thank you. It's nice to get it. So the verse was Ephesians 4:22-24. And it's to put off your old self and put on the new. It's a fantastic verse, and I really recommend meditating on it, because it's right there. It says we could put off the old and put on the new. It's a good visual, just like taking off your old smelly clothes and putting on your new ones, and just think about that. So, all right. Anybody else have a comment or a question? All right. Well, I'm here, during the week. If any of you want to, communicate, I'm here. I'm here for you. I'm happy to answer questions and to be supportive. And I do encourage you to try, recovery groups. And, it takes a lot to change. It's not easy. So don't try to do this by yourself. And that's not easy to do. So alone, it's not the way to do it. It's together. So make sure you find your tribe, and don't try to be like a nomad in this, or solo. I just, it's not the way to do it. So lean on each other, lean on me, hook up with recovery groups, and don't be discouraged if it's hard. It takes time, and it really does. It takes time. And sometimes people get it quickly, but most of the time it takes a little time. So just let it in. And God bless you. All right. See you next week.